Mamerina fiarabanantsika indray manaraka ny fampizarana mitohy izay iarahantsika amina vehivavy teolôjiana sinoa anankiray fizarana tapany faharoa androany. Raha fitiny kely ny tapany voalohany dia niresaka amin'ny ankapobeny ny momba ny Chine, ny nahatongavan'ny fiangonana Kristiana tany Chine ary indrindra indrindra ny fandraisana anjara mavitrika ny vehivavy eo amin'ny fiangonana Kristiana sinoa izy dia amin'izao tapany faharoa izao moa dia hidirantsika lalindalina kokoa amin'izay hoe ahoana ny tantarany manokana tao amin'ny nahatonga azy amin'izao fotoana izao manao fikarohana teolojika momba ny vehivavy ao amin'ny fiangonana Kristiana sinoa. Always glad, it's a pleasure and honor to have you as our guest to share about especially women in the Christian, Chinese Christian ecclesiology, according to your the theme of your research. In this second series of interviews, I want to know much more about your particular history. If you can talk about how did you become Christian? How did you end up doing theology studies?
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here and to have this kind of conversation with mommy and with all the audience. In my family, my mother was the first Christian. When I was 2 years old, my mother was very sick during that time. One of my neighbor just introduced my mother, say, "Oh, you should go to church, and God can help you like that." So my mother went to the church, start from that point, and became Christian. And my mother always took my elder sister and me go to church during that time. And start from there, I began joining the church. I was baptized when I was 18 years old. And when I was in the around the 12s, I have that kind of feeling like, oh, I want to study theology. And in the future, I hoped I can serve in the church. I just told my Sunday school teacher, I have that kind of dream.
Wow.
I just told them, and they are very surprised, and they told me like, oh, if you want to study in the seminary and in the future you want to serve for the church to be a pastor, you should pray for yourself. And they also mentioned like, we all will pray for you. So, and I also told my mother I have that kind of dream. I hope I can serve the church. My mother told me, oh, if you want to study in the theology, you should prepare yourself from now. And she suggests me to read the Bible. And my mother told me, if you can read the Bible 3 chapters one day, that means for 1 year you can read the Bible one time, the whole Bible. So I remember it starts my 6th grade in the elementary school. I think during that time I was like 12 years old. I started read the Bible every day. After my homework, I will read 3 chapters. I keep this kind of reading the Bible until I finish my high school. Like around 7 years, I read like 8 times of the whole Bible. During that time, I was so familiar with the stories in the Bible because I feel like, oh, that's my vision. I need to study in the seminary, so I should prepare myself. And at my home during that time, my mother gets some books from the church about the church history and some Christian autobiographies, lots of books at home. And in the summer vacation or winter vacation, I took some to read. And I remember I read some church history books and one autobiography from a Christian woman. Her name is Christina Tsai. And I read her autobiography and I feel like, oh, this woman was amazing. And she was one of the case study in my dissertation
Wow.
after so many years. And after I graduated from high school, I gave my I gave up my offer from university. I started to study theology in a seminary, and I finished my bachelor degree there and also my MDiv there. After 7 years, I finished my MDiv. Then I come back to my hometown to work in a church. During that time, our church is like they they have some minister, but most of the minister they didn't get any like the officially theological education. They maybe get some training for 1 or 2 years or several months. They start work in the church. Like for me, it's like we are the first generation we get the officially like theological education. So when I start work in the church, during that time I was like 25 years old. It's very young. And but every time when I preach, I realize the people want to learn more. The congregations want to learn more. And I also help the church to train some lay ministers. And I also feel like, oh, they try to learn more. They try to train themselves to be the better minister and serve the church better. After 1 year as a minister in that church,
Excuse me, have you been ordained as a pastor that time?
during that time, not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the church already ordained women that time.
Yeah.
Okay, but you decided not to be ordained as a pastor.
Oh, it's like in China, it's like after several year work in the church, like you can apply for the ordination. It's not like you can be ordained right after the seminary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry
And
to interrupt.
after,
Yeah.
do you want like translate?
No, I'm just
Okay.
sorry that I interrupted you, but I was kind of lost. Were you ordained or not? But now I
Yeah.
understand it better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And in my church, it's like a lot of women serve in the church in different area,
Mm,
like the senior pastor, like minister, Sunday school teacher, everywhere.
mm,
And after 1 year work in that church, I start work in a seminary to teach the bachelor students there. And the 70% of the students are women. And most of them, they come from the rural area of my hometown, the Henan province in the central of China. And most of them, after graduate, they will work in the rural area uh, and to help the church. Mm, In that church, also lots of congregation are women. So I worked in the seminary for like 5 years. And during that time, I feel like I need to continue studying more. And I hope I can pursue the PhD degree and prepare myself better for the theology education in China. So I plan to study in US and apply schools, everything, and to prepare myself, have the opportunity to continue my study. So after that, I moved to US to do my continue my theological education. And in whole my process to study theology and work in a church, in this whole process, my mother gave me a lot of support. And she is a very strong woman, not in the physically, but spiritually. And first time when I told my mother I want to study theology, my mother is like, you should think about this the calling from God. You should prepare yourself better. And I worked very hard when I was in the high school because I feel like I need work hard and prepare myself better like that. And when I finish my high school, I have the opportunity to study in the university. I also get good grade and get good offer, but I decide to give up that to study in the seminary. I face a lot of controversial during that time. My father feel I was crazy why I gave up the good opportunity to study in the university. But my mother support me always. She prayed for me every day, every morning, and I have get that kind of power and to say no to my father, and I can keep my dream to study in the seminary. And my mother is like, uh, it's a strong woman, and he never say, "Oh, it's time for you to get married. It's time for you to have kids." And when I say I want to study uh, in US, and she always say, um, you can do that. If you want, God will prepare a way for you. You can do that. And even now, I already like compare with most of the Chinese women in my age. They get married, they have kids, but for me, I get married, but I don't have kids. And my mother didn't say anything, say, oh, you should do this or that. And she just supported me to do what I want. And she also showed me a great example to continue study, continue learning. She started to learn play piano when she was like around 30s when I was like around 10 or 8 like that. She continued study that until now she can play the piano for the church, for the choirs. She keep learning so many things. Even I feel like, oh, that's too difficult for you. But she never say that too difficult. She just try her best and to keep learning. That's a good example for me for women, no matter which kind of situation we are facing. It's good we can keep learning and keep exploring any space, any opportunity God prepared for us.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story. The next question will be if you want to share or if you can already share a little bit about where is your research going now and maybe, how it goes and what might be the advice to the Chinese women first. Okay. Somary lavalava ihany ny resadresaka voalohany teo araka ny lazainy moa zany dia faly mandrakariva izy mifampizara amintsika ny tantara ny nahatongavan'o Kristiana hatramin'izao izy manao doctorat en théologie zao zany zay le nalava be anazy teo. Mamano izy no tonga Kristiana voalohany zany zany hoe tsy tena taranaka Kristiana hatramin'izay zany ry zareo fa rehefa 2 taona izy mbola zazakely 2 taona izy dia narary mafy ny mamany dia nisy namany io no taonan'ilay mamany zany handeha hamonjy fiangonana Kristiana dia tao anatin'izay aretina zay zany nahatongavan'ny mama Kristiana raha mbola zaza 2 taona izy dia rehefa tonga Kristiana moa ny mamany dia nety ny mamany niangona niaraka taminy zany izy sy ny rahavaviny dia rehefa feno 20 taona iananina zany no natao batisa. talohan'izy natao batisa nefa mbola vao 12 taona izy no efa naniry hoe za mba te hianatra teolojia zany rehefa lehibe dia resany tamin'ny mpampianatra sekoly alahadiny zareo izy zany nofinofiny zany mbola zaza 12 taona izy mbola tsy vita batisa tamin'izany fotoana zany dia gaga izy dia mpampianatra sekoly alahady nefa nampirisika anazy hoe raha zay no tianao dia hivavaka ao anao zay mba ho tanteraka tsomatsara zany nofinofinao hiasa ho an'ny fiangonana izany sy hianatra teolojia zany dia ny mamany kosa izy dia tena nampirisika anazy dia ny fampirisina voalohany nolazain'ny mamany taminy tamin'izay dia hoe raha tianao an'izany asa amin'ny fiangonana zany ianao izy dia tadidio fa antsotr'Andriamanitra zany dia mila mianatra mafy ianao dia manomboka zao izy dia atombohiny mamaky baiboly dia ny sosokevitra nomeny mamany izy tamin'izay hoe raha mamaky toko 3 isan'andro anao amin'io baiboly io izy mamany dia mahavita mamaky ny baiboly manontolo anatin'ny herintaona dia nanomboka kilasy de 6e izy mamaky baiboly foana sanandro rehefa vita izy ny devoir sy tentimody rehetrarehetra any an-dakilasy dia mamaky toko 3 amin'ny baiboly izy ka mandra-pahavitany lycée zany nanomboka 6e makatramin'ny terminal zany izy mamaky baiboly sanandro dia imbalo izy no nahavita namaky ny baiboly manontolo tao anatin'ny 7 taona. Dia tsy mandritra ny fotoam-pianarana ihany izy fa mandritra ny fotoam-pialatsasatra koa rehefa ny fianarana any Chine moa tsy ohatran'ny antsika io dia any ampianarana foana dia na tsy manao enti-mody sy ny tariny fa tena mafy ny fianarana any mila mamaky boky na mandritra ny vakansy aza dia ny vaky boky izay ataony mandritra ny vakansy koa izy dia ireo boky momba ny tantaran'ny fiangonana dia tamin'izay koa izy namakiany voalohany autobiografia vehivavy Kristiana anankiray Kristiana izy ny anarany novakiany tamin'izany fotoana zany dia isany vehivavy izay anaovany fikarohana manokana ao anatin'ilay PhD amin'izao fotoana zao izy io autobiografia novakiany tamin'izy mbola tany amin'ny collège io dia vao vita izy ny afaka baka zany izy dia izy zaza mahay izy sady mahiratra dia be dia be ny opportunité afaka nandehanany nianatra tamina université samihafa ary ny rainy aza izy dia tena nampirisika anazy mihitsy hoe io fahaizanao io mandehana mianatra zavatra hafa any amin'ny université fa tena nijoro izy afaka nanohitra ny rainy hoe teolojia no tiako atao dia mianatra teolojia moa zany izy vao vita ny fianarana zany vita ny ohatrany hoe équivalent baka any amintsika dia mianatra teolojia nandritra ny 7 taona izy dia rehefa avy eo miasa tany amin'ny toerana izay niaviany zany any amin'ny toerana somary ambanivohitra moa araka ny lazainy teo. 20 taona zany izy no navita ilay fianarana teolojia dia miverina tany amin'ny fiangonana tamin'ny tany niaviany. Dia araka ny nazavainy teo ny fiangonana Kristiana izay misy azy any Chine zany tsy hoe mahavita fianarana teolojia dia avy dia atao ordinationa pastora fa mila miasa aman-taonany maro eo amin'ilay fiangonana aloha izay vao mangataka atao ordinationa. Dia izy anefa zany efa miporteny efa mampianatra efa mandray andraikitra samihafa eo amin'ny fiangonana dia teo izy nahatsikaritra hoe ilay pastora miara-miasa amin'ireo manolo tena manao asan'ny fiangonana miaraka tamin'io fiangonana misy anazy tany ambanivohitra io izy tsy tena nanao fianarana teolojia ofisiel tany amin'ny seminaire ohatranazy zany. Tapany tao anatin'izay izy fa tena mangetaeta te hianatra teolojia ny mpiangona tao amin'ilay fiangonana. Dia namafisiny ihany fa ny vehivavy ny ankamaroany 70 isan-jatony mpiangona izy dia tena vehivavy daholo mihitsy dia tena liana te hianatra teolojia daholo zareo dia rehefa avy niasa herintaona tao amin'ny fiangonana io izy dia nalefa nampianatra tany amin'ny seminaire indray dia mbola mitovy ihany ny zava-nisy tany ny 70 isan-jatony mpianatra tany koa izy dia mbola vehivavy ary ny ankamaroan'ireo dia avy amin'ilay toerana niaviany any amin'ilay fiangonana misy anazy ihany koa zany. Dia rehefa nampianatra 5 taona tao amin'ny seminaire izy dia nieritreritra hoe aleo andalina misimisy kokoa mba ahafahako manatsara ny fampianarana teolojia aty aminay dia teo zany izy no nanomboka karokaroka sy nijery nangataka fianarana teolojia taty Etazonia amin'izay. Dia tao anatin'izany fotoana rehetrarehetra izany izy dia teo foana ny mamany nanoana anazy. Ny mamany moa izy dia tena isany hoe reny sady manana fiainam-pinoana matanjaka koa, dia mampatsiahana azy foana izany mamany hoe antson'Andriamanitra io mampirisika anazy mianatra foana izany izy mamany, fa tsy dia mitovy amin'ny fanaony reny any Chine hoe mampirisika ny zanany vavy hanambady sy hiteraka, fa ny mamany izy dia mampatsiahy anazy hoe apetrao amin'Andriamanitra foana fa afaka manambady sy miteraka foana anao rehefa any aoriana any, fa ataovy aloha ny fianarana. Dia tena motive anazy foana izany izy izay, ary amin'izao fotoana izao izy efa manambady fa mbola tsy miteraka, dia tsy mba manao pression aminazy mihitsy izy ilay mamany hoe tokony efa omena zafy kely amin'izay za, fa tena hoe mampirisika mianatra foana. Ary ny mamany izy dia nanomboka tamin'ny mamany 30 taona izy no nianatra piano dia mitendry ao amin'ny fiangonana, dia mandrakandroany dia mbola manohy mianatra foana ilay mamany, dia tena hoe modely tsara ho anazy zany hoe atsika vehivavy koa dia tokony manohy mianatra foana, satria tsy hoe rehefa vehivavy dia tsy maintsy hanambady sy hiteraka foana izany, fa afaka manohy mianatra atsika sady eny an-dalana eny koa afaka manambady dia afaka miteraka. Thank you. That was a beautiful story, especially your mom's encouragement and support for your theology study. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will continue introduce a little bit about my research. I mentioned that for the Chinese Christian women, they can be ordained, they can do almost everything in the church. And compare with so many churches in different area of the world, like Chinese Christian women, they have more opportunity, more space in the church. However, despite their significant presence and invaluable contribution, women's participation in the church leadership and decision-making remains limited. For example, if there's an opportunity to be a church leader or to be a senior pastor, there's a man and a woman, they both have if they both have almost the same ability, same theological background, education, normally the man will get that kind of position easier compared with a woman. So when I realized this kind of situation, I began to think about, the Chinese Christian women, they have a lot of wisdom can offer to the world, not just to the Chinese church. I hope the Chinese Christian women's story can be heard in the world, not just for the Asian church, Asian background people. I hope this kind of story can be heard in the West. Their voice, the Chinese Christian women's voice, often marginalized or overlooked in the theological discourse. When we say the theological discourse, normally we use the man's voice as a standard. So I try to bring Chinese Christian women's story, their voice, into the theological discourse and also in the Western academia area. So in my research, I try to bring Chinese Christian women's story and their experience into the theological discourse or agri-theological research. I hope to explore what theological insights can be uncovered when the Chinese Christian women's experience and perspective are taken seriously. How might the church be enriched, challenged, or reimaged by engaging with the life reality and contribution of the Chinese women? So in order to make my research manageable, I choose 3 Chinese women, use their autobiography as a case study. one is Christina Tsai. I mentioned her before. I read her autobiography, The Queen of Dark Chamber, when I was in the middle school. I use her as one case study is her autobiography as a theological source, try to bring her experience into the theological reflection. And she was a very famous Chinese evangelist in the first half of 20th century in China. And her autobiography was published in English in 1953. And that book was that's a very small book, but it was translated more than 30 languages.
Wow.
And another one I include in my dissertation is Florence Lee Tim Oy. She was ordained as the first female priest in the global Anglican communal in 1944. But her ordination was controversial. The bishop in the UK, the Anglican church there, they didn't agree with that. And finally, she decided to resign from her position as a priest. After 2 years, she was ordained in 1946. But she would not resign her calling to serve the church. She mentioned that I can resign the position as a priest, but I never resign my calling from God. I will serve the church. That's very powerful for me. After that, she continued serving in the church in Hong Kong, in Macau, and in different cities in the mainland China, and also in Canada. Throughout of whole her life, she continued to serve the church. And in the 1980s, when she immigrated to Canada, during that time, the Anglican Church in Canada allowed women to be ordained. So she can continue work in the church as a priest in Canada. So I also use her autobiography. I try to see how she understands herself as a woman and also as a first priest in the world. Third woman I include in my research, her name is Cao Shengjie. She is the first and so far the only female chair of China Christian Council. And she also published her oral history to introduce her whole life story, how she began to study theology, how she started to work in the church, and also can be the first leader in the China Christian Council in the national level. And she also represented China, the Christianity in China, in the whole world. She participated a lot of like the international organization and the conference and also World Christian Council to introduce the Chinese Christian women's story in the world. I try to use these three women's autography, try to see when the women be the center, when they tell their own story, what will happen? What's the difference between the story we know in the church from a women perspective? I try to use their experience as a theological source, try to reconstruct their understanding about the church and also the ecclesiological understanding for the Chinese church. When I use their story, it's not just their life experience. And I also can see they mentioned a lot of other women around them. Everyone, they face a lot of limitation in their journey, in their ministry, but everyone, they try to find a way in no way. And they face a lot of limitation, but they never give up. They never leave the table. I always say they stayed in the table and try to find a appropriate opportunity to flip the table, to try and prepare space for themselves and also be a great example for another generation, for the women around them. So, and also in my own journey, I was full of women ministers, women leaders in the church. I was cultivated by them. I listened their preach, I learned from them, and they also like the good example for me to keep my journey. So um, sometimes we feel like, oh, we are just a very normal people. We are nobody, and we are women. Nobody want to listen our voice. Sometimes we just give up our rights, our voice, our power. And but when I read this Chinese women's story and also write my paper during this process, I realized like everyone, when we try to like speak out, and as women, when we try to um, find a way for ourselves, for also for others, we can be an example for others, even when we don't know, we already influence others.
Wow. Thank you so much. I will translate all of that. And if we can conclude with a message that you can give, especially to Malagasy women listening and following us, because that is just like a wow for me. We don't really value women's history like you do. And as you said, like we don't think we can change anything from now. So, what would be a message that you can give to Malagasy women, especially in Malagasy Christian churches that still not ordaining women or not allowing women to be part of the leadership? But I will translate that beautiful history first. Ny fizarana faharoa lavalava ihany koa zany teo dia mahakasika an'ilay fikarohana doktora izay ataony araka ny lazainy teo moa dia hoe momba ny vehivavy sinoa kristiana zany no anaovan'ny fikarohana hoe araka ny efa voalaza teo moa zany hoe efa manana toerana sy opportunité be dia be ny vehivavy sinoa eo amin'ny fiangonana kristiana, saingy tsy karitra noho izy fa raha misy lehilahy sy vehivavy zany samy mitovy ny mari-pahaizany no miaraka manao fangatana ohatra amin'ny asa anankiray any Chine dia mbola ny lehilahy ihany no voafidy mialoha zany na dia hoe tsy misy manakana toy ary ny vehivavy. Zany hoe ilay feon'ny lehilahy sy ilay opportunité ny lehilahy zany no mbola manana ny toerany ambony kokoa noho ny an'ny vehivavy ihany, ka nahatonga azy resy lahatra hoe andinika ny tena fiheverana ny toeran'ny vehivavy eo amin'ny fiangonana amin'izay. Dia anatin'ny fikarohana nataony izy dia vehivavy sinoa anankitelo zany no nanaovan'ny fikarohana. Ilay voalohany efa niresahantsika teo ilay Kristiana ilay hoe autobiografie nivakiny tamin'izy mbola tany amin'ny mpianatra tany amin'ny collège. Izy io izy dia vehivavy misionera tany Chine tany amin'ny telo amby dimampolo sy 700 no nanoratra ny autobiografie. Izy tenany zany no nanoratra momba ny tantarany dia amin'izao fotoana izao izy dia efa voadika amin'ny teny anglisy sy amin'ny teny pirenena samihafa 20 mahery io autobiografian'io vehivavy voalohany antsoina hoe Kristiana izay isan'ny karohany io. Ny vehivavy faharoa ao anatin'ilay fikarohana ataony izy dia Florence, tsy azoko tsara moa ilay tena anarany teo fa izy no vehivavy pastora voalohany tany amin'ny fiangonana anglikana tamin'ny 470. Saingy ny mpitondra fiangonana ilay hoe bishop tany Angleterre izy tamin'ny fotoana io dia tsy nanaiky ny hanana pasteur vehivavy presbitera moa zany ny fiatodika anazy raha anglikanina any Madagasikara tsy manaiky ny presbitera vehivavy dia afaka roa taona tamin'ny 1970 izy dia nametra-pialana hoe rehefa tekenareo zany izy io presbitera vita ordinationa ato amin'ny fiangonana anglikanina aty Angletera dia lasa izy nametra-pialana fa ny mahapastora vita ordinationa amin'ny rafitra amin'ny fiangonana izy no azoko ametahana fialana fa ny antson'Andriamanitra ny antso ho pastora kosa izy dia ho tohizako foana dia lasa zany izy nanao asa mahapastora anglikanina na presbitera anazy tany a Hong Kong, tany a Chine, tany a Canada dia tamin'ny taorinan'izay moa zany efa nanaiky ordinationa ny vehivavy pastora anglikanina ny Canada dia tany zany izy no nanao ny asa mahapastora vita ordinationa azy. Ny vehivavy fahatelo izy asa koa dia tena fanoratana anazy ity fa hoe tao Chantia zay ny fahazahoako tsy tadidiko anazy teo izy indray izy no vehivavy sinoa voalohany tena hoe mitarika nanana andraikitra teo amin'ny sehatra international zany izy ka izy no nampahafantatra ny toeran'ny vehivavy sinoa eo amin'ny fiangonana manerana an'izao tontolo izao dia ny biografian'ireo vehivavy telo ireo izy no anaovany asa fikarohana momba ny doktorany dia tsy ilay fiainany manokana ihany fa indrindra ny expérience momba ny teolojia ny zavatra nataony teo amin'ny fiangonana izy dia tena isany hoe nahatapahany hoe tsy izy telo vavy ihany kay no nandalo fanilikiliana sy fanakanana teo amin'ny asa teo amin'ny fiangonana izy fa be dia be ny vehivavy sinoa izay mbola mandalo an'izany koa fa izy telo vavy zany izy no nanome modely hoe tsy ny abandonne ry zareo ary niezaka mijanona teo foana tsy niratehan'izay opportunité fa nanomana an'izay toerana ahafahany mijoro ho an'ny vehivavy tsy ho an'ny toerana ho an'ny tenany ihany fa ho an'ny vehivavy rehetra amin'izay izay manaraka anazy koa izy ka hiananana tenany zany araka ny fijoroan'ny vavolombelona teo dia tena isany hoe mahazo hery rehefa mijery ny zavatra nataon'izy telo vavy reto hoe tena mafy ny lalana izoran'ny vehivavy vao ekena eo amin'ny fiangonana Kristiana nefa na izany aza izy dia mijoro tsy miabandonne ary miezaka manomana sy manohana ny vehivavy namany ihany na dia ao anatin'izany rehetrarehetra zany ary dia tao anatin'izay izy natapany fa hoe isany manome hery ny vehivavy hafa izy ny filazana ny tantaran'ireo vehivavy nijoro tamin'ny fiantsoana azy ireo. Dia ny fanontaniana farany moa izay napetrako aminy araka ny mahazatra eto amin'ny pejy dia hoe inona ary ny afatra tolotao ho an'ny vehivavy malagasy izay mbola mandalo ady sarotra manoloana an'izay fiantsonana azy izay koa amin'ny fiangonana.
Thank you. Even I cannot understand the language, but I can feel the passion from mommy. And if I want to say something to the Madagascar women, I feel I don't have a lot of background or knowledge about Madagascar women. If I want to say something, I should say like these words I say to myself and to the women who want to create more space for women and also for others. And for me, it's like if we want to change the culture, change the society, before that, first thing we should change ourselves. And most of the culture we face now is like the patriarchal culture in China thing. The traditional understanding is like they always give more privilege and preference to the sons over the daughters. And in the family, they want to have a boy rather than a daughter because they feel that's the culture. And even they have the money, they have any property, they want to give this to their son, not their daughter. Even now in China, most of family like that. But when we face this kind of situation, when you hear a lot of words around you say, oh, women cannot do this, cannot do that. When you hear that, you should tell yourself, I can do this, I can do that. You should first thing liberate yourself and empower yourself. When we start to give ourselves more resource, more support, and more positive energy, then we can begin to say, oh, I can do this, I can do that, and I can try so many different things. Even other people say, you cannot try that. First thing I feel in my journey that's very important to liberate myself and empower myself. Second thing I feel is like begin to change our small community around us. For example, our family. If you are women, you are like the sisters, you are the mothers, or maybe mother-in-law or daughter-in-law, everything, wife, you have a lot of roles. In your roles, try to practice to give more voice, more space to your family members, women members. When you can change your family, you can give your family member more space and more voice. Then you can change a bigger community. For example, your church, your village, your small community around you. And for example, in my family, my mother tried to support her daughters and give us more space. You can grow, not face limitation. You can grow in broad way. When she started to change our family, then, for example, my aunt, my niece, my sisters, they start to influence more people. That's a small step we can do. Start from ourselves. And also, I feel like it's very important to find the example for yourself. And when I grew up, I get a lot of influence from the women ministers, women pastors. And for me, it's very natural to ordain as a pastor. So I never think, oh, women cannot ordain. Because when I grew up, the society, the church is like this. Women can do that. Women can be ordained. So for me, it's very natural. When I get that step, I just apply for the ordination. I was ordained. So we should be that kind of example. We should find the example from others at the same time. We should make ourselves as an example to others. In that kind of environment, the whole community, the sisters around us, we all grow up together. We never can grow by ourselves. We can grow up together, and we also need to support each other. When I think about the Madagascar women, or think about the Chinese women, especially the Chinese women in the rural area, they don't have so much opportunity to get like higher education or to know a lot of people or to read a lot of book or anything. But um, we can learn from the example around us. We can see there's some people, they are trying to change the environment. And also very important, as women, we should keep learning in our whole life. I feel mommy is doing the very important work, try to bring a lot of voice to the Madagascar women. Here is a start point. You can hear a lot of different kind of story, and you also can start to think about maybe I can do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for the compliment and also for bringing Chinese women's voice. I will translate that beautiful and strong message and advice, and also I myself already is inspired by that. So let me share this with the Malagasy women before we close. Araka ny mahazatra eto am-pejy zany dia afatra ho antsika mpanaraka indrindra ny vehivavy malagasy no atolotany dia araka ny nanomboany anazy teo zaho izy tsy dia mahalala loatra ny momba ny vehivavy malagasy fa ny afatra azoko mena kosa izy dia zao hoe ny sehatra tahaka an'izao izy dia sehatra afaka hanovatsika n'ilay toe-tsaina patriarkaly izay misy eo amin'ny fiarahamonina fa mialohany hanovatsika ny fiarahamonina nefa izy dia isika tenatsika aloha no mila miova. Ny toe-tsaina patriarkaly izy dia mieritseritra fa ny zazalahy dia ambony kokoa noho ny zazavavy, ny lehilahy dia manan-danja kokoa noho ny vehivavy, ary na ny fianakaviana manan-katao ary izy dia manome tohana bebe kokoa ny zanany lahy noho ny zanany vavy. Ka isika vehivavy zany aloha izy no mila miova aloha. Na dia lazain'izao tontolo izao ary izy hoe tsy dia manan-danja tahaka ny lehilahy tsika, tsy mahavita tahaka ny vitan'ny lehilahy tsika, dia isika vehivavy no mila miteny hoe vitako io. Be dia be izy ny fianarana, tsy fahalalana, tsy zavatra azontsika vehivavy atao na dia manan-kivy atsika aza ny manodidina atsika tsy vitanareo vehivavy dia mila isika vehivavy zany aloha no matoky tena hoe vitatsika io. Ny afatra faharoa izy rehefa voaovanao ny tenanao dia ny manodidina anao koa aloha no ovao voalohany, ny ankohonanao, ny zanakao vavy, omeo sehatra ny vehivavy manodidina anao, omeo sehatra ny zanakao vavy fa rehefa manomboka ao anatin'ny tokantranonao anao izy no manome sehatra sy manao mahazava-dehibe ny vehivavy dia hitatra tsikelikely eo amin'ny manodidina anao, eo amin'ny fiarahamonina, eo amin'ny fiangonana izay misy anao izany. Izy manokana izy dia tena hoe notoanany reniny izy dia manomboka mahita amin'izay izy ireo hoe tantinna sy ny kozinina sy ireo zanany ny esin'ireo hoe ay ve afaka manao an'izany ny vehivavy, izany hoe manomboka amin'ny tena aloha dia eo amin'ny ankohonana dia izay amin'izay izy izay vao isika ireo amin'izay izy no lasa modely ho an'ny vehivavy hafa koa, izany hoe aza mieritseritra hoe hitombo samy rery anao tenanao ihany izy no hampivelatra sy hampandroso ny tenanao fa miara-mandroso atsika. Mora taminazy zany izy nanonofinofi hoe za mba te ho pastora koa satria nahita vehivavy pastora maro izy teo amin'ny manodidina anazy. Ka isika koa izy mety ho isika aloha no zany modely voalohany zany dia mila miara-mitombo zany atsika fa tsy tena hoe ny tenako ihany no ampandrosoko fa ndao hiaraka handroso. Dia isany ohatra nomeno moa zany izy hoe ohatran'izao ataoko izao izy dia tena hoe afaka na dia tsy afaka hanohy fianarana teolojia sy tsy afaka hamaky boky, tsy afaka handeha amin'ny seminera ary izy rehetrarehetra dia amin'ny fiainana manontolo dia mazotoa foana mianatra, mazotoa mifampizara tahaka an'izao ataontsika eto amin'ny pejy izao araka ny teniny io hoe mifampizara ny feon'ny vehivavy, ny eksperiensa ny vehivavy fa izay no ahafahantsika vehivavy miaraka mandroso. Thank you so much, Yanan. We wish you the best for your research and also pray for you and your family and everything. Thank you.